charged a man with murder following the death of Ann Widdecombe. The CPS says it has decided to prosecute Joshua Kerry for murder following the death of Ann Widdecombe.
On Wednesday, the 8th of July, Ann Widdecombe was due to appear on a live television program. It was a routine booking. She had done hundreds of them. She never joined the call. The following morning, a gardener who worked at her home in Hayter, on the eastern edge of Dartmoor, was asked to check on her. He found her on the kitchen floor. Prosecutors have since told two London courts what they say happened in the 18 hours in between. A man has been charged with her murder and denied bail. No trial date has been reached and no plea has been entered. This is what has been established in open court and what has not. If you're not British, the name may mean nothing. In Britain, it needed no explaining. For nearly 40 years, Ann Widdecombe was one of the most recognizable politicians in the country. First as a minister, then as a television fixture, then as the public face of a party she joined in her 70s. She was 78. She was born in Bath in 1947, read Latin at Birmingham, then took a second degree at Oxford, and worked in marketing and university administration before entering politics. She won Maidstone for the Conservatives in 1987 and held the seat for 23 years. Under John Major, she served as a junior health minister and then as Minister of State for Prisons. In 1999, William Hague made her Shadow Home Secretary, a post she held until 2001. Years earlier, as a junior minister, she had publicly accused her own Home Secretary, Michael Howard, of having what she called something of the night about him, a line that followed him for the rest of his career and became one of the most quoted phrases in modern British politics. She was a Catholic convert, and her faith shaped almost every position she took. She opposed abortion throughout her career. She opposed equalizing the age of consent. She defended the shackling of pregnant prisoners, a policy she later stopped defending. She was not a politician who moderated to survive. In a 2003 Channel 4 poll ranking, the worst Britons of the 20th century, she was included at number 94, a measure, more than anything, of how divisive a figure she remained decades into public life. She left the Commons in 2010 and found a second audience on television. She competed on Strictly Come Dancing that same year and later appeared on Celebrity Big Brother. In 2019, she joined the Brexit Party and was elected to the European Parliament for South West England, a seat she held until the UK left the EU. She joined Reform UK in 2023 as its immigration and justice spokesperson, and she was still doing that job the week she died, still giving interviews, still arguing her positions with the same directness that had defined her since 1987. She lived alone. In 2008, she bought a bungalow at a crossroads at the top of Haytor Vale, a village of about 25 houses on the eastern edge of Dartmoor, for a reported £600,000. She named it Widdecombe's Rest. She said she had come there for the peace and quiet, and that she intended to stay for the rest of her days. The outdoor pool at the back was paid for by her own account, with the money from Strictly Come Dancing. She played only a limited part in village life. When residents heard sirens on the Thursday morning, several assumed there had been an accident out on the moor. The account that follows comes from what Prosecutor Kashif Malik told Westminster Magistrates Court on the 21st of July, and from what the prosecution told the Old Bailey later that day. None of it has been tested at trial. Prosecutors say that at around 12:30 on the 8th of July, a red Vauxhall Corsa pulled up outside the bungalow. They say Joshua Kerry, a 28-year-old man from Rotherham in South Yorkshire, had driven 265 miles that morning, and that he entered through the front door. Cameras at the property recorded him, according to the prosecution, wearing black gloves with a hammer held partly out of sight at his side. Miss Widdecombe was eating lunch in the kitchen. The court heard that he asked her about bank cards and identification, then struck her on the top of the head 21 times with the hammer. The court was told he tipped her from her chair, took her wallet from her handbag, and left. He was inside the house for about 2 minutes. The prosecution described it to the Old Bailey as a planned and targeted attack, carried out with what counsel called a ferocity of violence. Her last message was sent at 12:19. Shortly before 1 o'clock, she was expected on a live interview for Channel 5's Matt Allwright show. When she didn't appear, the production team contacted her personal assistant, who asked the family gardener to go and check on her. If you want to know what happens when this case returns to court, the plea is expected on the 20th of November, and that hearing will likely settle whether this goes to trial as charged or changes shape entirely. Subscribing is the only way you'll see that update the day it happens, rather than a week later in someone else's recap. The gardener found her the next morning. The ambulance service called Devon and Cornwall police to the address at around 20 to 12. She was declared dead at 12:20. Chief Constable James Vaughan later said his force had mounted an extraordinary response to a horrific murder of a very prominent public figure, and that the operation had been running at a lightning pace through the first 48 hours. Assistant Chief Constable Matt Longman announced a murder investigation on the Friday. At that stage, he said there was no information suggesting terrorism or a political motive. A 26-year-old man was arrested that afternoon a few miles from the scene. By Saturday morning, he had been released and told he was no longer part of the investigation. Just after 9 o'clock that Saturday evening, South Yorkshire police arrested a 28-year-old man in Rotherham on behalf of the Devon force. On the Sunday, Longman told reporters there was still no information suggesting a terrorism-related incident, and that officers were not looking for anyone else. That position held for one day. On Monday the 13th, the investigation changed hands. Counter-terrorism policing Southeast took the lead, with Devon and Cornwall supporting. The man in custody was further arrested on suspicion of the commission, preparation, or instigation of acts of terrorism. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood told Parliament that new information had come to light and confirmed that the suspect had never been referred to Prevent, the UK's counter-radicalisation program. Assistant Commissioner Lawrence Taylor, who heads UK counter-terrorism policing, said publicly that Miss Widdecombe had been deliberately targeted and that officers were pursuing multiple lines of inquiry into motive. Joshua Kerry is 28, from the Kimberworth Park area of Rotherham in South Yorkshire. Neighbors described him to reporters as quiet and said he had largely stayed out of public view since his father's death the previous December. He had reportedly worked for a lift company and was said to live alone with his dog on the estate where he grew up. According to those reports, his mother, a former teaching assistant, had since moved away from the area, as had his two brothers, one of whom is understood to have joined the Royal Navy. His uncle told the Telegraph he was a gentle giant, polite, and very shy, and said he was in total shock when he learned of the arrest. He said he had never expected his nephew to be linked to Miss Widdecombe's death, and separately paid tribute to her as forthright, strident, and principled. None of this speaks to the charge itself. It is background reported by family and neighbors, not evidence, and none of it has been put before a court. On Monday the 20th of July, the Crown Prosecution Service authorized a charge of murder. Frank Ferguson, Chief Crown Prosecutor for the CPS Special Crime and Counterterrorism Division, said in a statement that police inquiries into the defendant's motives were continuing and that those inquiries included a potential political or terrorist connection. That wording matters, and it is worth being precise about it. Joshua Kerry was arrested on suspicion of terrorism offenses. He has not been charged with any. He faces a single charge of murder. He appeared at Westminster Magistrates Court the next morning in a gray tracksuit and spoke only to confirm his name, his date of birth, and his address on Burley Road in Rotherham. He appeared, according to reporters present, largely without visible reaction throughout the hearing. A court artist's sketch is the only image of that hearing because photography is not permitted inside courts in England and Wales. He was taken to the Old Bailey the same afternoon, where the fuller prosecution outline was given. Bail was refused. He was remanded in custody. He was not asked to enter a plea. That same morning, in Exeter, an inquest into her death was opened and immediately suspended. Senior Coroner Philip Spinney told the hearing that concerns had been raised because she was uncontactable, that an employee had been asked to conduct a welfare check, and that she was found unresponsive with visible injuries. He described the investigation as intensive and complex, and said the precise cause of death had not yet been established. A provisional cause was given to the Old Bailey as blunt force injury to the head. He formally opened proceedings, confirmed her identity for the record, and then adjourned. The inquest will not resume until the criminal case is over. That is standard practice in cases where a criminal trial is pending. She is the third parliamentarian to be killed in a decade, after Joe Cox in 2016 and Sir David Amess in 2021, though unlike them, she had left the Commons 16 years earlier and held no elected office. Tributes were paid across party lines in the House of Commons, including from Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch. The killing came in the same week as a change of government. Andy Burnham, who became Britain's 7th Prime Minister in a decade on the 20th of July, has called for a serious review of MPs' security. Lawrence Taylor said counterterrorism officers were working with the Speaker's office to make elected representatives aware of the protection already available to them. Reform UK has argued the existing arrangements are inadequate. Robert Jenrick called it astonishing that Nigel Farage's protection had been reduced after his election to Parliament. Farage has since been offered a meeting with the chair of the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, the body responsible for protecting public figures. Farage himself laid flowers outside her home. He said Reform had searched its own correspondence for any pattern of abuse directed at her and had found nothing. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, in a separate tribute, called her a formidable Brexit campaigner and a parliamentarian who could move an audience like few others in her party. Her family said on the 22nd of July that a private funeral will be held in the coming weeks for close family and friends, and that a public memorial will follow later in the year. Her management company said she had continued campaigning for Reform UK right up until her death, 16 years after leaving the Commons. Established in open court, she was attacked at her home on the 8th of July. She was found the following morning. Prosecutors alleged 21 hammer blows and a 2-minute intrusion. Joshua Kerry is charged with murder and remanded in custody. Not established. Motive. Whether the terrorism line of inquiry results in any further charge. Whether anyone else is involved. The precise cause of death. And, most obviously, whether the prosecution case is correct. None of it has been tested before a jury. It is worth being careful about how the motive question has been reported, because the sequence has been widely garbled online. Police did not investigate a political motive and rule it out. They said early on that they had no information pointing to terrorism. That was the 12th of July. The following day, on new information, counterterrorism officers took over. 8 days after that, the CPS confirmed that same line of inquiry was still open. That is the current official position. Anything beyond it is speculation, and speculation about this case now carries legal consequences. Police have asked repeatedly that the public not speculate, given that this case is now active before the courts. That request has legal force as well as moral weight. The case returns to the Old Bailey on the 9th of October for case management, with a plea and trial preparation hearing set for the 20th of November. A provisional trial date has been fixed for the 8th of June 2027. Nothing further will be confirmed until then. If you want that update when it lands, the subscribe button is below.